When the waiter placed the black leather check folder in front of my father instead of me, every fork at the table stopped moving. My father stared at it as if it had insulted him. Around him sat 17 relatives, empty seafood towers, reserve Cabernet, scraped clean dessert plates, and the kind of silence that only happens when a trap closes on the wrong person. He lifted his eyes to me across the long private dining table. "Marissa," he said, keeping his smile in place by force. "Tell him where to put that." I folded my napkin beside the only thing I had ordered all night, a glass of mineral water with lime. "No," I said. "That belongs with the person who booked the room." My mother's hand flew to her pearls. My brother, who had spent the evening calling me dramatic under his breath, finally looked up from his phone. Aunt Patrice whispered my name like a warning. My father's face changed by tiny degrees, the public charm draining out of him until all that remained was panic wearing a suit. 10 minutes earlier, he had leaned back in his chair, pointed at the wreckage of lobster shells and steak bones, and announced, "You can cover dinner tonight. Consider it the first step toward making up for what you did to this family." He had expected me to reach for my purse the way I always used to. He had not expected me to know exactly how high-end restaurants protect themselves from large party fraud. He had not expected me to notice the host stand, the reservation notes, or the card he had put down to secure the private room. He had not expected me to pay for my own water, tip the service staff, and quietly tell the manager that I was not financially responsible for a meal I had not ordered. And he definitely had not expected his own credit card to tell the truth in front of everyone. "My name is Marissa Vale. I am 33 years old, and I run guest operations for a hotel group with 3 properties along the North Carolina coast. I know banquet contracts, room blocks, private dining minimums, gratuity rules, cancellation penalties, and the particular look a server gets when a table is about to become a problem." That knowledge did not make me hard, it made me observant. For most of my life, I used that same talent for the wrong purpose. I observed my family's moods. I watched my mother's mouth tighten when the electric bill arrived. I noticed when my father's voice got too loud because a client had not paid him. I learned when my younger brother Callum was about to ask for money, and when he was about to pretend it was not money he wanted. By the time I was 17, I could read a room faster than most people could read a menu. I also knew how to make the room easier. I paid, I smoothed, I covered. I drove across town with groceries. I told myself it was love because the alternative was admitting I had been trained to buy my place at the table. 3 years before that dinner, I lost the table anyway. It happened on a Sunday afternoon in my parents' kitchen, the one with the yellow tile my mother always said she hated but never replaced. Callum had decided he was going to open an artisan burger truck. Not work on one, not apprentice with someone who owned one, not build savings or a plan, open one. He had a name, Salt and Smoke. He had a logo his friend made in exchange for concert tickets. He had a dream of parking near breweries and serving short rib sliders to crowds who would apparently appear because he wanted them to. What he did not have was a business plan. He also did not have collateral. The bank wanted a co-signer for an $82,000 equipment loan. My parents wanted that co-signer to be me. I remember the kitchen table that day with more clarity than I remember some holidays. My mother had put out iced tea and lemon cookies as if sugar could soften debt. My father sat with his arms crossed, already offended by whatever answer I had not yet given. Callum paced near the back door in a chef coat he had bought online, the tag still stiff at the collar. "You have the credit," my mother said, "and Callum has the talent." "He can cook," I said. "That isn't the same as running a food business." My brother laughed once, sharp and ugly. This from the woman who tells housekeepers where to put towels. I had been managing 2 resort restaurants and a banquet department at the time. I handled scheduling for more than 100 employees. I negotiated vendor contracts, tracked margins, managed health inspections, and fixed service disasters before guests ever knew they existed. To Callum, I was still the sister who had worked front desk in college and wore comfortable shoes. "I'll look at the projections," I said. "If the numbers work, we can talk." "There are no projections," Callum said. "It's a truck, Marissa. People buy food, we sell food, that's the projection." My father slapped his palm on the table hard enough to rattle the glasses. "Your brother needs one thing from you," he said, "one signature. After everything this family has done for you, you can give him that." Everything this family had done for me. That phrase always arrived when they wanted me to forget the math. It skipped over the grocery bills I paid at 18, The car repair I covered at 20, the 4 semesters of community college I helped Callum finish and then quit, the $6,000 I put toward my mother's medical deductible, and the credit card I secretly paid down after my father's construction work dried up one winter. It counted my childhood as a debt and my help as an obligation. I said no. Not loudly, not cruelly. I said it with my hands wrapped around a glass of iced tea, my voice steady, my stomach in knots. I won't attach my credit to a business without numbers. My mother's eyes filled. Callum called me selfish. My father stood so fast his chair scraped the tile. You always thought you were better than us, he said. No, I said. I thought $82,000 deserved a spreadsheet. That was the sentence that ended my membership in the Vale family. By Monday morning, I was removed from the group chat. By Wednesday, my mother had stopped answering my calls. On Friday, an aunt sent me a message that said, "Your father is heartbroken, and your brother is devastated. I hope your savings keep you warm." I stared at that sentence in the employee break room while a dishwasher behind me sang along to the radio. Then I blocked my aunt and went back to work. The first year of silence was brutal in small, humiliating ways. I did not fall apart dramatically. I did not sob in public or stop showing up. I answered emails. I fixed staffing gaps. I hosted a corporate retreat for 240 people during a tropical storm warning. I smiled at guests who complained about ocean views not being ocean enough. At night, I sat in my apartment with dinner cooling beside me and caught myself reaching for my phone to send my mother a picture of something ordinary. A recipe, a cloud shaped like a dog, a clearance sale on the candle brand she liked. Then I remembered she had chosen the story where I was cruel, because it was easier than admitting she had asked too much. In the second year, I stopped waiting for my father to call on my birthday. In the third year, I stopped checking Callum's social media. Therapy helped, although I hated it at first. My therapist, Dr. Larkin, had a calm office with blue chairs and a plant that never seemed to grow. She never told me my family was bad. She asked better questions. "What did paying protect you from?" she asked one Tuesday. I said conflict. She waited. Disappointment, I added. She waited again. Being left, I finally said. That was the answer that made my throat close. After that, I began practicing small refusals. No, I cannot cover your shift. No, I am not available after 7. No, I will not reduce the cancellation fee when your signed contract says otherwise. No, I do not need to justify that. By the time my mother's name lit up my phone 3 years after the kitchen table fight, I was not healed in some shiny inspirational way. I was simply steadier. I owned a small townhouse near the marsh. I had a promotion, a reliable car, a retirement account, and a standing Sunday dinner with 2 friends who never asked me to prove I loved them by opening my banking app. My phone buzzed at 10:42 on a Wednesday morning while I was reviewing a private event contract for a medical conference. "Mom added you to Vale family." The words sat on the screen like a hand on the back of my neck. The chat had the same picture as before. A blurry Thanksgiving photo from years ago where everyone looked happy because no one had asked for money yet. My mother's message appeared beneath it. "Marissa, sweetheart, your father and I have been thinking. Life is too short for distance. We would love to have dinner with you Saturday night at the Gilded Heron, just the 4 of us. You, me, Dad, and Callum. A peaceful evening, a new start." A second message arrived less than a minute later. Families are supposed to lift each other up. Maybe it is time we all remembered that. I read it once as a daughter and once as a professional. As a daughter, I saw my mother reaching across 3 years of silence. As a professional, I saw passive language, no apology, and a carefully chosen restaurant with a private dining program and a reputation for expensive seafood. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to type, "What exactly are you apologizing for?" I wanted to type, "Did Callum's truck fail?" I wanted to type, "Why now?" Instead, I wrote, "I can come for dinner. I am paying for myself." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Of course, sweetheart," my mother replied. "We just want to see you." That answer should have settled me. It did not. My assistant manager, Tessa, noticed before lunch. "You've read the same banquet clause 4 times, she said from my office doorway. My mother invited me to dinner. Tessa knew enough of the history to make the exact face I expected. "At the Gilded Heron?" she asked after I told her the restaurant. "Yes." "With the brother?" "Yes." "After 3 years?" "Yes." She leaned against the doorframe. "That sounds like a room with a hidden bill in it." I laughed because she was not wrong, and because laughing was easier than admitting my hands were cold. Our executive chef Mateo heard about it during pre-shift and gave me one sentence while slicing lemons. Take your own car and sit near the exit. That was Mateo's version of affection. I told them both I would be fine. I did not tell them that I had already opened the Gilded Heron's website and checked the private dining policy. Parties of 12 or more required a card on file. Cancellations inside 48 hours were charged a fee. Large parties carried automatic gratuity. The tasting platters started at numbers that made even me blink, and I approved banquet invoices for a living. Just the four of us, my mother had written. Still, I checked. On Saturday, I dressed like myself. Navy trousers, ivory blouse, low heels, small gold hoops. I wore the watch I bought when I became director of guest operations, not because it was expensive, but because every time I buckled it, I remembered signing the offer letter alone and taking myself to lunch afterward. I left my townhouse at 5:30 for a 6:15 dinner. The Gilded Heron sat in the historic district, tucked between an art gallery and a boutique that sold linen shirts to people who said they were escaping city life while buying city-priced things. The restaurant had old brick walls, polished brass lights, and valet parking on weekends. I did not use the valet. I parked 2 streets away and walked. The evening was warm, the sky over the harbor turning peach behind the buildings. Couples drifted toward dinner reservations. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed with the loose ease of a person who had not spent the drive practicing boundaries out loud. I turned the corner and saw my father's black pickup at the curb. Fine. My mother's white SUV was behind it. Fine. Then I saw Aunt Patrice's silver Lexus, Uncle Niall's van, my cousin Serena's red Jeep, Callum's dented blue sedan with the faded salt and smoke decal still peeling from the back window. 3 more cars I recognized. One with South Carolina plates that had to be my mother's sister from Beaufort. I stopped on the sidewalk. The restaurant windows glowed in front of me. Inside, I could see the hostess stand, the bar, the flicker of candles. My phone sat in my purse with my mother's message still searchable. Just the 4 of us. I stood there long enough for a passing couple to step around me. The old Marissa would have walked in already apologizing to herself for being suspicious. She would have told herself that maybe the extra cars were coincidence. Maybe the family had gathered for something else. Maybe her mother had been overwhelmed and forgot to mention a few people. The woman on the sidewalk knew better. I could have left. But leaving without seeing the truth would have kept the truth alive in my imagination. Maybe they meant well. Maybe 3 years had changed them. I walked inside. The hostess smiled with professional warmth. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "Vale," I said. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then to me, then back to the screen. A small hesitation. I knew that hesitation. It meant the reservation notes had a story. "Your party is in the Heron Room," she said. "They've already been seated." "How many?" I asked. She paused again. 18, including you." There it was, 18. "Was the room booked under Theodore Vale?" I asked. "Yes, ma'am." "With a card on file?" Her training fought with her instinct. "For large parties, yes. Thank you." She picked up one menu and led me past the bar, past couples leaning close over cocktails, past a server carrying a tower of oysters through a room that smelled like butter, lemon, and charred beef. I heard my family before I saw them. Aunt Patrice had a laugh like silverware dropped on tile. My father's voice rolled over everyone else's, loud and pleased with itself. My mother said, "There she is," before I even turned into the doorway. The Heron Room was not a room so much as a glass-walled alcove, with a long table under a chandelier made of smoked crystal. Every chair was filled except the one at the foot, directly opposite my father. The table already looked attacked. There were seafood towers picked down to crushed ice and lemon wedges. There were ribeye boards, crab claws, fried green tomato stacks, bowls of whipped butter, and 2 bottles of wine I recognized from our own hotel cellar. Not the most expensive wine in the world, but expensive enough that no one ordered it by accident. My father stood and spread his arms. "There she is," he said, as if he had been waiting patiently for his prodigal daughter instead of lying about the guest list. People clapped. Actual clapping, scattered and awkward, but clapping. My mother came around the table first. She smelled like the same gardenia perfume she had worn when I was a child. For one dangerous second, I felt 9 years old again, leaning against her while she stirred tomato sauce and hummed Patsy Cline. Then she hugged me too tightly and whispered, Please be sweet tonight. Not I missed you. Not I am sorry. Please be sweet. I pulled back and smiled because the hostess was still standing behind me with my menu. I thought it was just the four of us, I said. My mother's expression fluttered. Well, once your aunt heard, and then Serena wanted to come, and your grandmother's sister was in town, and it seemed wrong to exclude people when everyone loves you so much. Everyone loves you so much. Aunt Patrice lifted her wine glass. We wanted to celebrate the family being whole again. Callum smirked without standing. He looked older than the last time I had seen him. Not mature, just worn. The confident chef coat from 3 years ago had been replaced by a wrinkled button-down. The salt and smoke dream had apparently not turned him into the culinary celebrity he had imagined. I sat in the open chair because there were 18 people watching, and because the server was already stepping forward to fill my water glass. His name tag said Ellis. He was young, maybe 21, with tired eyes and careful hands. He moved with the tight focus of a server handling a table large enough to ruin his entire night. Still or sparkling, he asked me. Sparkling, I said, with lime please. My father lifted his glass. Bring her something better than water, we're celebrating. Water is fine, I said. Callum snorted. Still controlling every penny, I see. I turned my glass slowly between my fingers. Only mine. The first few minutes were a performance of warmth. My mother asked about my job without listening to the answer. Aunt Patrice said I looked thin, then told me thin was good at my age. Uncle Niall asked whether hotels were still hiring girls at the front desk and laughed like that was a joke instead of a fossil. My father kept ordering instead of a fossil. My father kept ordering. That was the first thing I truly watched. He did not consult the table. He waved Ellis over like a man used to being obeyed. Another round of crab claws, 2 more steak boards, that corn pudding thing, and bring another bottle of the Silverbank Cabernet. Ellis repeated the order. My father pulled a card halfway from his wallet, flashed it, and tapped the table. Keep it under mine, he said. We're taking care of family tonight. The words went around the table like a signal. My mother relaxed. Aunt Patrice smiled into her wine. Callum looked directly at me. Taking care of family. In our house, that phrase had always traveled in one direction. When I was 19 and my mother needed $400 before payday, family took care of family. When Callum wrecked his car after ignoring 3 warning lights, family took care of family. When my father miscalculated taxes and needed someone to cover the shortfall before penalties hit, family took care of family. Family never took care of me. Family thanked me just long enough to ask again. Ellis set my sparkling water in front of me. Thank you, I said. He looked surprised by the directness of it. You're welcome. He moved away to clear a mountain of shells. Aunt Patrice clicked her tongue at him because he reached across her left side instead of her right. My jaw tightened. I had been 18, clearing plates for women like Aunt Patrice, smiling while they treated service like invisibility with hands. He's doing fine, I said. Aunt Patrice blinked. What? The server, he's handling a large party well. My father chuckled. There she goes, always managing somebody. I manage systems, I said. Mostly so people like him don't get crushed by guests like this table. A small silence opened. My mother filled it quickly. Marissa has always been very serious about work. Work is serious, I said. Callum leaned back. It can't be that serious. You work at a hotel. I run guest operations for 3 hotels, 2 restaurants, a conference center, and a spa. Last month my team served just under 9,000 guests. Aunt Patrice's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Uncle Niall looked at me differently, as if I had turned into a person with numbers attached. My father's eyes narrowed, not in anger exactly. Calculation. He had known I was doing well because my mother always knew enough to resent, but he had imagined well in vague terms. A comfortable office, a salary, maybe a bonus. He had not pictured contracts, purchasing authority, budgets, or the fact that I could estimate the table's bill within $200 without seeing it. Callum recovered with a laugh. Good, then tonight won't scare you. My mother shot him a look. Too soon. There it was, just for a heartbeat, the plan showing its teeth. I lifted my water and took a sip. The evening stretched through courses I had not ordered, and memories no one had earned the right to share. My mother tried to revive old stories. The beach trip where Callum got sunburned. The Christmas when the dog ate ribbon. The time I won a spelling bee in 5th grade and my father said the prize dictionary looked expensive. She skipped other memories. She skipped my senior year when I worked double shifts after school because my father's contractor had stopped paying him. She skipped the summer I gave Callum my car for 2 months because he had lost his license, and my parents decided his job mattered more than mine. She skipped the wedding where I paid for my own bridesmaid dress and half the flowers, then stood smiling while my mother told guests how generous Callum was for helping set up chairs. At that table, history had been edited for easier digestion. Aunt Patrice made the first direct cut during the second bottle of Cabernet. "It must be peaceful," she said, "living alone with no one depending on you." I looked at her. "Peaceful, yes." She laughed, expecting me to soften it. I did not. My cousin Serena, who had been quiet most of the night, studied her plate. She was the only one besides me drinking water. I remembered her as a teenager hiding in my parents' guest room during holidays, reading fantasy novels while the adults fought over politics and money. She had sent me one message after the kitchen table fight. "I hope you are okay." I had not answered because pain makes even kindness look dangerous. Now she caught my eye and looked away fast. Callum waited until Ellis was setting down fresh plates to speak loudly enough for the server to hear. Marissa always did like being the successful one. Some people need that. I smiled at Ellis as he placed a dish near me. "Thank you, I won't be having any of this." Callum rolled his eyes. "Of course not. Too good for it?" "No, I didn't order it." My father set his knife down. "Don't start." "I haven't started anything." "You came in with an attitude." "I came in because Mom said this was dinner for 4. My mother's lips trembled. She was excellent at trembling when accountability came near. "We wanted everyone here because everyone was hurt." "By my credit decision?" "By your abandonment," Callum said. That word landed harder than I wanted it to. Abandonment. For 3 years they had told themselves I left, not that I was pushed out. Not that they cut me off for refusing to risk my financial life on a food truck with no plan. I had abandoned them by failing to fund them. "What happened to Salt and Smoke?" I asked. Callum's face tightened. "That's not the point. It seems related. It never got off the ground because you wouldn't help." "No," I said. "It never got off the ground because the bank saw what I saw." My father's voice dropped. Enough. The old command still knew where to hit. My shoulders wanted to fold. My mouth wanted to form an apology just to lower the temperature. Then Ellis returned with my water, and I saw his hand hesitate near the table because he could feel the air changing. I had spent too many years being that employee, trapped beside other people's family wars, hoping no one turned their humiliation into a complaint about the service. I thanked him again. My father waited until he left. "You think you can talk down to us because you have a title?" "No. I think I can tell the truth because I am no longer afraid of being removed from a chat." Several people looked at their plates. My mother whispered, "That was a difficult time for all of us." "It was a decision," I said. "For heaven's sake," Aunt Petrus said. "Are we really going to ruin a beautiful meal over old wounds?" I looked at the table. At the crab shells, the wine rings, the butter smears, the plates Ellis would have to scrape. "I didn't order a beautiful meal," I said. My father laughed once. "You keep saying that. Because it matters." He leaned back with the slow confidence of a man who believed the room still belonged to him. "You always were good at making your love conditional." Something inside me went very still. For years I thought anger arrived loud. Sometimes it arrives quiet, clears a chair, and sits down where fear used to be. "My love was not conditional," I said. "Your access to my money became conditional. You confused the two because that was convenient." No one spoke. Then Callum laughed too loudly. "Wow. Therapy really did a number on you." It helped me count. My mother pushed her chair back an inch. "Marissa, please. We invited you because your father has been under terrible pressure, and Callum has had a hard few years, and I thought maybe seeing everyone would remind you what matters." "What matters?" "Family." "Then why did you lie about who would be here?" Her eyes filled again. I felt the familiar pull. Comfort her. Make it easier. Give her a softer version of the truth so she does not have to sit in the sharp one. I did not move. Dessert arrived like a distraction ordered by the universe. Chocolate torte, key lime pavlovas, bourbon bread pudding, coffee after dinner drinks. I had not ordered dessert either. Ellis placed nothing in front of me except fresh water and a small dish of lime wedges. "Thank you," I said quietly. He nodded. My father picked up his spoon and addressed the table as if the previous conversation had not happened. To family, he said. Several people echoed it weakly. Callum lifted his glass. And to Marissa, remembering she's one of us. I looked at him. He smiled. A notification lit up his phone on the table. He had it angled carelessly, face up, between his dessert plate and his wine. I did not mean to read it. I saw my name because my eyes were open. Mom, keep it calm. Your father will ask after dessert. Callum's thumb moved too late to hide the next line in the thread preview. She can cover tonight, and maybe the mortgage arrears if we play this right. For a moment, the room receded. Sound became soft, distant. My mother's laugh blurred with silverware and the low music from the dining room. Mortgage arrears. If we play this right. There was grief in seeing it written so plainly. Not shock, exactly. Shock requires innocence, and I had lost mine years ago. It was grief because some last stubborn part of me had still hoped the evening was clumsy rather than calculated. My father waited until the coffee cups were half empty. He had always understood timing. He knew when people were full and slow, when the public mood was warm, when resistance would look rude. He folded his hands on the table and gave me the reasonable, disappointed look he used when he wanted obedience to dress itself as maturity. Marissa, he said, I'm going to speak plainly. That would be new, I said. My mother inhaled sharply. My father ignored it. This dinner was a gesture, a family gesture. We have all been through pain because of choices that were made. Tonight is a chance to show there is still goodwill. He glanced toward the plates, the bottles, the empty seafood towers. You are in the best position to cover this. Consider it a step toward repairing what was broken, Callum added. It's not like you can't afford it. Aunt Patrice murmured. Your parents have done so much. My mother looked at me with wet eyes and said, we need you to come back to us. There it was, not an apology, not a request, a bill dressed as reconciliation. I looked from face to face. Some were eager, some embarrassed, some pretending they had not known. Serena's face was pale, and she was staring at Callum's phone like she had seen the message too. How much do you think this meal costs? I asked. My father frowned. That's not the point. It is exactly the point. Do not humiliate me by making this about numbers. You invited me to a restaurant under false pretenses, ordered for 18 people, and waited until dessert to tell me I was paying. Numbers are the only honest part of this evening. His eyes hardened. You owe us that much. A stillness moved through the room. You owe us that much, not please. Not can you help. Oh. I heard the word land in the center of the table and spread backward through my life. I heard it in every electric bill, every car repair, every tuition payment, every emergency that somehow became mine because I was competent and female and nearby. I heard it in my mother's tears and my father's pride and my brother's resentment. I heard the old price of belonging. Then I heard Dr. Larkin in my head. A debt can be proven. A demand can be refused. I placed my napkin on the table. I'll handle what is mine, I said. My mother exhaled as if the world had righted itself. My father nodded once, satisfied. Callum leaned back and grinned. I stood. Excuse me, I did not walk to the front register. I walked to the service station just outside the Heron Room, where Ella stood beside a manager in a charcoal jacket checking a tablet. Her name tag said Renee. She had the composed face of someone who had prevented at least 6 disasters since lunch. Renee? I asked. She looked up. Yes, ma'am. How can I help? I kept my voice low. I work in hospitality, so I'll be direct. I am not the host of the Vale party, and I did not authorize or order the food and beverage for that table. Please close my check separately for the sparkling water. Add 35% gratuity to my check for Ellis and the support team. The remaining bill should go to Theodore Vale, whose card is on file for the reservation. Renee's eyes flicked once toward the Heron Room, then back to me. Ellis looked at the floor, but not before I saw relief cross his face. Understood, Renee said. I also want to make clear I am not disputing the service. Your staff has been excellent. Thank you, she said. We appreciate that. Ellis swallowed. Thank you. You did well tonight, I told him. This table was not easy. His face changed the way young service workers' faces change when someone sees the labor instead of the tray. Renee ran my card for the water, printed the receipt, and handed it to me. I'll present the main check once the table is cleared, she said. Perfect. When I returned, Callum was telling Uncle Niall that he might relaunch the truck idea with a smaller menu. My mother was smiling like a woman who believed she had successfully repaired the family by outsourcing the cost to me. My father tapped his fingers on the table, impatient for a victory that he thought had already happened. I sat down and placed my receipt in my purse. My mother leaned toward me. All sorted? Yes, I said. The next 8 minutes were strangely calm. I watched Ellis clear plates. I watched my family relax into the warm laziness of expensive food and assumed rescue. I watched Callum show someone photos of a second-hand food truck listing, his confidence returning now that he believed my money was back in reach. Serena looked at me once. I could not read her expression fully. Fear, maybe apology, maybe recognition. Renee entered with the black leather folder. She did not hesitate. She walked to the head of the table and placed it directly beside my father's coffee cup. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Vale. The table shifted. My father looked at the folder, then at Renee, then at me. Marissa, he said lightly, you can give her your card. I already handled my check. His smile tightened. Renee remained still, professional, unreadable. My mother whispered, what does that mean? It means I paid for what I ordered. Callum sat forward. You're joking. No. My father opened the folder. I watched him try not to react to the total. He failed for only a fraction of a second, but a fraction was enough. The bill was higher than even I had estimated. The second Cabernet, the after-dinner drinks, the automatic gratuity, the private room minimum, the seafood towers, the steaks, the desserts, the coffees. It all had weight now. My father closed the folder halfway, then reopened it as if the number might change out of respect. Aunt Patrice craned her neck. Uncle Niall suddenly needed his reading glasses. Callum's mouth opened. You can afford it, he said to me. I'm sure several people at this table can afford what they personally ordered. My father's voice was low. Do not do this. I'm not doing anything. You are embarrassing us. No, I said. You arranged the evening. I am declining the role you assigned me. Renee waited with the patience of a saint and the posture of someone who had security, one radio call away. My father pulled out the same card he had flashed earlier and slid it into the folder. Run it, he said. Renee took it. Of course, she left. No one spoke. The silence had texture. It pressed against glasses and candlelight. It made people aware of their hands. My mother leaned toward me, her voice barely moving. Marissa, whatever point you are making, make it later. I am making it now because you made the demand now. We were trying to bring you home. No. You were trying to bring my credit limit home. Her face crumpled. Callum snapped. You are such a cold person. I am a tired person, Renee returned. She leaned slightly toward my father, voice discreet but audible in the silence. I'm sorry, Mr. Vale, this card was declined, Aunt Patrice gasped. My father's face went still. Run it again. Certainly. Renee left again. My mother stared at the tablecloth. Callum's knee bounced under the table, shaking the silverware. Uncle Niall pretended to cough. Someone at the far end whispered, Oh my God. Renee came back. I'm sorry, it still isn't approved. Do you have another form of payment? My father's hand went to his wallet. He moved cards around with fingers that had suddenly lost their steadiness. He produced another, then a third from behind his insurance card. Renee took them both. The room waited. From the main dining room came the soft, normal sounds of other people's evenings. Laughter, a birthday toast, the clink of a glass. Life continuing outside the little courtroom my father had built for me, and accidentally entered himself. Renee returned a third time. She did not have to say much. I'm sorry, Mr. Vale, neither card is going through. My father looked smaller, not physically. Something around him collapsed inward. My mother covered her mouth. Callum cursed under his breath. Aunt Patrice said, Theodore, in a voice full of accusation, as if his insolvency had offended her personally. Then my father looked at me, not with apology, with expectation. That was the final lesson. Even exposed, even humiliated, even standing in the truth of his own declined cards, he still looked to me as the solution. Not his wife, not his son, not the relatives who had eaten and drunk beside him. Me. Marissa, he said, and there was something raw in it now. We are in trouble. I can see that. His eyes flashed. Don't be cruel. I'm not. We could lose the house. My mother made a small sound. There it was in the open. The mortgage arrears from Callum's phone. The reason for the dinner, the real guest of honor at the table, had been their debt. How long? I asked. My father swallowed. Several months. How many? He looked away. My mother whispered, 5. Callum snapped, Mom. I turned to him. You knew? He glared. Of course I knew. I lived there. And your solution was lobster? His face flushed. We thought if you came and remembered what family felt like, you might stop punishing everyone. Punishing? You walked away. You threw me out. You refused to help me. I refused to co-sign a reckless loan. And look where that got us, he said. I stared at him. Your failed food truck that never opened did not put Mom and Dad 5 months behind on their mortgage. My father slammed his hand down. Enough. This time, no one jumped, not even me. He noticed. I stood slowly. Dad, if you had called me and said, we are behind, we are scared, we need help making a plan, I would have listened. I would have helped you find a financial counselor. I would have looked at the mortgage documents. I would have sat with you through hard numbers. I would not have mocked you for being in trouble. My mother looked up, hope flickering. But that is not what you did, I continued. You lied. You gathered an audience. You ordered thousands of dollars of food and wine you could not pay for. You waited until dessert, so refusing would make me look heartless. You tried to turn my dignity into your payment method. No one moved. I will not pay this bill. My mother began to cry for real then, or maybe the performance and the pain finally mixed until even she could not tell the difference. Marissa, please, she said, we are your parents. I know. How can you let strangers see us like this? You brought strangers into it when you chose a restaurant instead of a conversation? Aunt Patrice stood halfway. This is cruel. Your father is proud. My father's pride ordered crab towers on a declined card. Serena made a sound that might have been a laugh and might have been a sob. Aunt Patrice shot her a look. My father's voice dropped so low I almost did not hear it. You always wanted to prove you were better than us. The old wound opened, but it did not bleed the same way. No, I said. I wanted you to love me when I was not useful. My mother's crying stopped. I picked up my purse. I paid for my water. I tipped the staff. The rest belongs to the people who ordered it. Renee, I'm sorry your team is dealing with this. Renee gave a small nod. Thank you, ma'am. My father stared at me. You would leave us here? I am leaving a bill with the table that created it. Callum shoved his chair back. You think this makes you strong? No, I said. I think it makes me finished. I looked at my mother one last time. You told me families lift each other up. For years that meant I held everyone while no one held me. I hope you get real help. I hope you keep the house if you can, but I will not be tricked into rescue anymore. Then Serena stood. It surprised everyone, including me. I'll pay for what I ordered, she said, voice shaking, and my portion of the room fee if they split it. Aunt Patrice hissed, sit down. No, Serena said. This was wrong. My mother looked betrayed. Serena's eyes filled, but she kept going. Aunt Elise, you told us Marissa offered to host a reunion. You said she wanted everyone here. The table turned toward my mother. My mother's face went blank. Callum said, Serena, shut up. Renee looked down at her tablet, professionally invisible. My father closed his eyes. There it was. Another lie surfacing because one person had broken formation. Aunt Patrice's mouth opened and closed. Uncle Niall said, Elise? My mother whispered, I only wanted everyone together. No, Serena said. You said she was treating us. You said it was her apology dinner. The words moved down the table like spilled wine. Her apology dinner. That was what they had called it. My absence had been turned into a crime. My return had been staged as restitution. Every relative at the table had arrived believing they were entitled to eat because I was guilty. My father did not defend it. That hurt more than anger would have. I nodded once, mostly to myself. Thank you, Serena. She wiped her cheek. I'm sorry. I know. I walked out before anyone could turn the new truth into another argument. Ellis caught up with me near the host's stand. Miss Vale? I turned. He held out my receipt copy. You forgot this. I had not, but I took it because he needed a reason to step away from the room. Thank you, he lowered his voice, for the tip and for saying something. You handled that table with more grace than they deserved. His smile was tired but real. Outside, the harbor air hit my face warm and damp. I walked 2 blocks to my car with my purse strap tight in my hand. My phone was already vibrating. Vale family had become a bonfire. My mother, come back inside. Callum, you smug witch. Aunt Patrice, your grandmother would be ashamed. Uncle Niall, this is between you and your parents, but you could have handled it privately. Serena, I'm sorry, I should have said something sooner. My father did not text. I stood beside my car under a street lamp and looked back toward the restaurant. Through the windows I could not see the private room, only the bar and the glow of other dinners. A valet laughed with a couple climbing into a silver car. Somewhere a church bell marked the hour. For years, silence had been punishment. That night, silence became shelter. I opened the group chat settings and left the chat. No announcement felt more complete than the small gray line that appeared on my screen. Marissa left. I drove home without music. At a red light near the bridge, my hands began to shake. Not from regret. From the body finally releasing what the face had refused to show. By the time I reached my townhouse, I had 1 voicemail from my mother, 2 from Callum, and a missed call from Serena. I listened to Serena's first. Her voice was small. I didn't know, not all of it. Aunt Elise said you planned the dinner. I should have asked you. I'm really sorry. I paid my part and left. Call me if you want. No pressure. No pressure. Those 2 words did more for me than any of my mother's tears. I did not listen to the others that night. I made tea, sat at my kitchen table, and took out the receipt Ellis had handed me. Sparkling water with lime. 35% gratuity. Total $12.60. It was the cleanest bill I had ever paid. The next morning, the fuller story arrived in pieces. Serena texted that after I left, Renee brought itemized copies and offered to split the bill by seat as much as possible. Several relatives suddenly remembered they had only had a few bites. Aunt Patrice argued over whether the wine should be divided equally. Uncle Niall tried to claim he had not eaten seafood because crab was technically not his order. Callum refused to pay anything at first, then put down a debit card that covered less than 2 desserts. My father eventually called a neighbor who came to the restaurant and paid enough to let them leave, in exchange for my father signing something on the spot. Serena did not know what. I read the message twice and set the phone down. There was no pleasure in it. Satisfaction, yes. Relief, absolutely. But not pleasure. I did not want my father humiliated in a restaurant. I wanted him not to build an altar to his pride and ask me to fund it. 3 days later, my mother came to my office. She did not have an appointment. Tessa called from the front desk with a careful voice. Your mother is here. I looked through the glass wall of my office and saw her in the lobby, small under the high ceiling, clutching her purse with both hands. For a second, I saw the woman who taught me to braid my hair, the woman who once stayed up all night sewing a costume for a school play because I had forgotten to tell her until the day before. Then she turned, and I saw calculation return to her face when she noticed the polished floors, the ocean view, the staff greeting me by title. I met her in a side conference room with glass walls and no door lock. She sat without being asked. You embarrassed your father, she said. No hello, no apology. I closed the conference room door. He embarrassed himself. He is not well, Marissa. Then he needs professional help. We could lose everything. I'm sorry. She stared at me as if sorry were a counterfeit bill. You have savings. Yes. And you would watch us lose the house? I would watch you sell a house you can no longer afford before I would let you manipulate me into paying for it. Her mouth tightened. You sound so hard. I sound clear. That therapist poisoned you against us. No. She helped me stop confusing guilt with love. My mother looked toward the lobby where my team moved with purpose. Her voice softened, and for a moment I hated how badly I wanted to believe it. I miss my daughter. I sat across from her. Which part? Her eyes flicked back. The girl who came over when you needed her? The one who paid before anyone had to ask? The one who made Dad's bad months disappear and Callum's mistakes feel temporary? Or the person sitting here? Tears gathered again. Quieter this time. I don't know how to talk to this version of you. That is the first honest thing you've said, she flinched. I reached into the folder I had prepared that morning because part of me had expected this visit. Inside was a list of nonprofit credit counseling agencies, a housing assistance office, a bankruptcy attorney with a good reputation, and a financial planner who did sliding scale consults for families in crisis. I slid it across the table. I will go with you and Dad to one appointment with any person on that list. I will help you organize documents. I will not give you cash. I will not pay arrears. I will not co-sign anything. If you want my presence, it comes with truth and a plan. She looked at the paper as if it were an insult. We need money, not homework. You need both. But money without honesty is just a delay. She pushed the paper back. I don't recognize you. I recognize myself now. That's enough. She left without taking the list. Tessa watched her go, then appeared in my doorway 5 minutes later with a cup of coffee. No questions, she said, just caffeine. I took it with both hands. Thank you. The house went on the market 6 weeks later. I found out from the listing, not from my parents. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, original yellow kitchen tile described as vintage charm. I stared at the photos longer than I should have. There was the kitchen table where I had said no. There was the living room where I had wrapped Christmas gifts I paid for. There was the hallway wall where my school pictures had once hung, replaced in the listing by a mirror to make the space look larger. I cried then, not because I wanted to buy it back for them, because a house can be both a wound and a memory, and losing access to one does not erase the other. Serena and I met for coffee 2 weeks after the listing went up. She apologized again. I accepted. She told me Aunt Patrice was furious because the dinner had cost her more than she planned to spend on vacation clothes. Uncle Niall had stopped repeating my mother's version once Serena showed him the texts. Callum was telling people I had always hated him. My father had taken a job supervising repairs for a property management company. My mother was staying with her sister some nights because the house felt too tense. Do you want updates? Serena asked. I thought about it. Only if something is urgent or true. She smiled a little. That rules out most of the family. We both laughed, not because it was funny enough, but because sometimes truth needs a sound that is not crying. A month later my father called. I almost did not answer. His name on the screen still had weight. When I picked up, neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then he said, "Your mother gave me the list." I had not known she kept it. Okay. I have an appointment with the credit counselor Thursday. That's good. Another silence. I'm not asking you for money, he said, and the words sounded as if they had been dragged uphill. Okay. I'm asking if you meant it, about going once. I closed my eyes. Yes, I meant it. The appointment was awkward and painful and necessary. My father brought folders in a cardboard box. My mother came too, pale and quiet. The counselor, a woman named Miss Bell, did not shame them. She did not rescue them either. She laid out numbers in columns, mortgage arrears, credit cards, personal loans. The neighbor's loan from the restaurant night, with terms that made Miss Bell remove her glasses and stare at my father until he looked away. There was no magic solution. The house had to sell. Cards had to be closed. Spending had to change. Callum had to move out or pay rent. My parents had to tell relatives the truth. My mother cried. My father argued. Ms. Bell waited them both out. I sat beside them, not between them and the consequences, just beside them. When we left, my father stood in the parking lot holding the cardboard box. He looked older in daylight. I thought if you paid that night I could breathe, he said. For one night, I said. He nodded slowly. I was angry you wouldn't. I know. I'm still angry. I know that too. He looked at me then, and for once there was no performance in his face. But you were right about the truck. The sentence was small. It was not an apology big enough for 3 years. It did not fix the dinner or the chat or the way my mother had used tears like a tool. But it was true, and truth had been rare enough in my family that I did not reject it just because it arrived late. Thank you for saying that. He nodded and walked to his truck. My mother hugged me before leaving. It was stiff. Then it softened for half a second. I did miss you, she whispered. I did not say it back immediately. I had missed her too, but I was done handing out comfort on command. I missed parts of us, I said. She pulled away, hurt and understanding battling across her face. That's fair, she said. It was the second honest thing. The house sold in August for less than they wanted and more than they feared. My parents moved into a 2-bedroom rental near my mother's sister. Callum did not move with them. He took a job managing inventory at a restaurant supply warehouse after Serena's husband helped him get an interview. For the first time in his adult life, he had to show up at 7 in the morning for work that did not care about his dreams. He did not thank anyone. He did, however, stop asking me for money. My relationship with my parents did not transform into a movie ending. We did not gather around a new table laughing through tears while forgiveness poured over everything like gravy. Real repair is slower and less photogenic. My mother sends texts now that do not include emergencies. A picture of a plant she is trying to keep alive, a recipe she found. Once, a message that said, "I am sorry I made you responsible for my fear." I read that one in my car outside work and cried so hard Tessa knocked on the window with napkins. My father calls once a month. The conversations are short. Weather, work, the price of lumber, the counselor's payment plan. He has said sorry twice. Both times sounded like they cost him something, which is why I believed them. I have not joined a family chat. I have not paid a bill. I have not co-signed a loan, covered a shortfall, or sent money through an app with a cheerful note to make someone else's crisis feel less like a crisis. The biggest change is not what they do. It is what I no longer do inside myself. I no longer hear a ringing phone and assume I am about to be assigned a debt. I no longer translate love into usefulness. I no longer keep my own needs small so other people can spend freely and call it family. Sometimes I still miss the old kitchen. I miss my mother singing while tomato sauce simmered. I miss the version of Callum who followed me around the yard with a plastic sword and called me captain. I miss a father who may have existed only in flashes, but those flashes were real enough to grieve. Missing people does not mean handing them your wallet. That is the lesson I paid for over years, and the one I finally stopped paying to learn. The receipt from the Gilded Heron is still in my desk drawer, $12.60, sparkling water, lime, and a tip for a young server who did not deserve to be trapped in my family's performance. Whenever I see it, I remember the moment the check landed in front of my father, and the room learned what I had learned in therapy, in silence, in every small no that led to the large one. A boundary does not need to shout, it only needs to hold.